Welcome in to the Running with the Wolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're seeing some positive things that I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get started, if you like what we do, give us a 5-star rating and comment what you thought of the episode on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because we're really trying to grow this channel as well. So let's start with it. Let's talk about the Indiana game a little bit. Obviously, no Halliburton, but something that I wanted to point out first. It feels like a play. I was at the game on Saturday. It feels like a playoff atmosphere for a random Saturday December game in December. I mean, man, just the crowd was alive. Of course, it was Ants Shoe Night, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I looked on ESPN. We are 17th in the league in attendance, but we have sold out, but we have 100% capacity on the season compared to 88 last season. I just want to say, and I've always said this, I feel like give Minnesota basketball fans a winner and they'll show up. And so far they've been showing up.
I mean, it's beautiful. I've heard that from a couple people so far, is that it feels like a playoff vibe in the stadium and everybody's fired up. And that's what we need, and players that makes them, play that much harder on the random days. And I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing. If the team, is playing harder every day at home because the crowd is there to help them, or the crowd is there to get fired up because the team is playing hard every game. But either way, it's working, and let's hope it keeps going.
Absolutely. And I found something interesting. Maybe you could comment on this. I was looking at overall attendance figures, and obviously it fluctuates based on how much your arena can hold. Like, for example, I think the Mavericks have been number one for the past couple of years, but their arena holds more than the average NBA arena. One thing I saw, even though they're having kind of a great year so far, Indiana is dead last in attendance and 27th in percentage rating. I don't know. Maybe Indianapolis is too much of a college basketball area of the country, but it would seem like they would rally around this team a little bit more. It seemed weird to me.
Yeah, but I mean, look at us just the last couple of years. We've had young potential stars. We've had an up and coming team, and nobody was really showing up. It took us to literally be number one in the NBA for fans to finally start showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So they might just be a year or two behind. It happens.
Right. But the only thing I will say on that is we got a guy like Ant who I would show up to watch any night of the week. And they got a guy like Halliburton who, if I was in Indiana, I would show up to watch anybody any night of the week as well. But anyway, let's talk about the game. Like I said, playoff atmosphere. And Ants had a slow first quarter, didn't score in the first quarter, but then he caught stride, made 7 threes, and really was a huge part of them pulling away. So we saw Ants in this last game, 3 for 19, but it feels like the Ants of old, or the Ants that we need, may in fact be back. And maybe that was driven by the shoe. Maybe that was driven by his big announcement that, of course, he's going to be a dad, which is huge for him. Congratulations to him. But Ant was huge in this game.
Yeah, he is. And I think a lot of it is just with a guy like him, and we've talked about it all the way back to his rookie year on here, when he was taking a lot of shots and missing a lot of shots. The shots look good. And just like what I said with Nas last episode, as long as the shot looks good and it looks like it's an in-rhythm shot, if they go in or go out, I'm not too concerned about it, because I know that, Edwards is a shooter. I know it's going to come around. So as long as everything looked like it was part of the system, I wasn't mad at him, having a bad game the other day, although he did, lead the team in assists. I'm just happy that he's back. We're going to need him playing at an MVP level if we want to really make a push.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to have your best player playing at an elite level. And speaking of someone who was playing at an elite level even before Ant got going, Karl Anthony Towns. They just had no one who could guard him. Now you might want to. Miles Turner always top 5, top 6, top 7 in the NBA in blocks, but he could not guard Towns. No, then they tried to put a small guy on him like Bruce Brown. He just dominated in that game, and it was really telling. If we get this cat night in and night out, and Ant's there too, I mean, this could be an unstoppable 1-2 punch, which we saw against Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Cat is always like what makes him special is that he's a center or a power forward or a big either way that can stretch a floor and shoot like no other. But the only way that that's important or valuable is if the other team has to guard him with bigs, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And in the past, they've been guarding him with small guys, and they've been getting away with it. And that takes a lot of Cat's value away. But if he can punish the small guy, like if he can make it so that if you put a small forward on him, he's just going to take you to the post and punish you, or straight line drive you and just bury you under the rim. If he can do that, that makes his value so much higher, and it makes our whole team work better. Is when our bigs can punish teams for playing them with smalls.
And speaking of our bigs, I know last podcast, I want to give you a little kudos. We talked about the struggling shooting of Naz Reid. And what does he do? He goes and has what, a 27-point night with like
Yeah.
7 threes, and he played well against Indiana as well. So I mean, Naz Reid has been stroking it lately, and really the Wolves in general. Just I didn't see the official stat, but we really hit shots against Indiana and the team before that as well. But not Naz Reid is showing why there's signs like honk if you love Naz Reid in Minneapolis right now. He's been so fun.
Yeah, I think I saw, and we talked about it. Might have been last episode or the episode before. Again, if we want to make a run for some real playoff action, he's going to have to be in the running for sixth man of the year. And I think when you looked up a couple weeks ago, he wasn't even in the top 10. I just saw recently that statistically, right now, he's in the top 4 for best sixth man of the year. So he's moving up, and he's moving up fast, and that's what we need. We need somebody like him who's going to come in and be hungry and search for his shot the moment he comes in the game. Because when Anthony Edwards leaves the court, we need that sort of aggression.
Mm-hmm. And I said earlier the last opponent. Of course, I mean the last opponent being the Dallas Mavericks, who didn't have Kyrie, and obviously, and of course the Indiana Pacers didn't have
Halliburton.
Halliburton. Yeah, Halliburton. So what I want to talk about next is the Wolves. I saw a stat. They have 11 wins by double digits this season, tied for second in the league. And what do you attribute this to the most? Because I'll give some of my reasons, but I wanted to hear your reasons as well. What would you attribute some of the, in the NBA terms, blowout wins for the Wolves?
I mean, it's pretty cliche right now to say this, but it's just being professional. I mean, it's kind of the thing that you keep hearing, this mantra you keep hearing around the Timberwolves, and it's getting old to hear. I get it, and I'm sorry, but I mean, Rudy Gobert is there every play,
Mhm.
and he demands that of everyone else. Mike Conley is there every play, and he demands that of everyone else. So you don't have those. The NBA is a game of runs, and when you play solid defense every possession, you're gonna limit the other team's runs. So instead of being a 3, 4, 5 point run, like we will hold them to a 3, 4, 5 point run, except in the past that was a 9, 12 point run. So the difference between a double digit win and a 3 point win is squashing one or two runs early in the game. And I think
Mhm.
that just our defense and showing up every play is going to make that happen, and is going to eliminate 5 or 6 points out of every team's final score.
I agree with that, but one thing I will raise as well is I think part of what's helped is the Wolves have caught some breaks with the other team missing some of their best players, which I was alluding to earlier. Like for example, Pacers without Halliburton, Mavericks without Kyrie, Grizzlies, of course, without Ja, without Steven Adams, some of their better players. Hornets without LaMelo. I'm not saying that we wouldn't win this games. We had the Jazz earlier without Markkinen,
Oh
a
yeah.
couple other ones. Pelicans twice without Zion. We had the Warriors once without Curry. So I'm not saying your point isn't valid. It totally is, but I also think part of it is we've got pretty lucky with the other team's injury bug so far this year.
Yeah, we have. And I mean, I know when we were going to play the Suns, it was going to be the first game everyone was back, and then they didn't. But I mean, that happens. I mean, we've had years in the past like that too, where it seems like, everyone was out, and we still finished around 500. It's just we're finding ways to win the
Mm-hmm.
games we used to lose in the past. So I'm
Right,
not too worried about the blowout part. Um, but I'm just happy that we're not losing to teams that we should have beat. That's
right.
what our Achilles heel has been in the past.
Right, but yeah, like you were saying, and I was going to rebuttal as well. As much as the other teams have missed players, we have had some great wins against like a full strength Thunder team. We had a great win against a full strength Knicks team. Now you can debate how good the Knicks are, but that's a conversation for another day. A full strength Warriors team. We beat a full strength Celtics team. We beat a full
Yeah.
strength Nuggets team. So it's not like
Yeah.
we haven't done both. And that's almost one of the things that I found impressive about the Wolves this year. They're winning the games that they are supposed to win. If
For sure.
you I don't think you can be 14 games over 500 this early in the season without winning a couple games that you are supposed to. And like, for example, I think they have avoided the trap game. Like, I felt like last night they avoided the trap game in a big way. You think, oh, Halliburton's not playing. Man, we got this one. They're on a back to back. But I mean, you avoid the trap game by going full throttle, having the hometown energy, and the Pacers were in that game. They were up in the second quarter, and then the Wolves led by 2 going into halftime. Then they took it in the third quarter.
Well, I mean, one thing you're talking about on what makes us win these games, and you just mentioned it, the third quarter. And you've heard Nas Reed especially has said it a couple of times. Carl Anthony Towns has, so has Anthony Edwards. Those third quarters, they come out and they've mentioned it aloud that they stick to the game plan. They do what the coaches tell them to do, and they run the game plan. And we've been one of the best third quarter teams in the entire NBA of late, the whole season. And that's a huge win from the past when we were one of the worst teams in the third
Mm-hmm.
quarter every year, one of the every year since. So, um, coaching, that's a big step. That's the difference between, a 5-point win and a 15-point win right there. It's just guys sticking to to the system and trusting the coach.
And you mentioned their play in the third quarter. I have some stats on that right now. Second best in third quarter efficiency
Yeah.
with a plus minus of 4.4, and in their last 3 games a plus minus of 8, which I believe is best in the league. Last year, like you were mentioning, a minus in the third quarter. It's not as bad as you'd think. They're only a -1 in the third quarter last year, but I think a lot of that was towards the end of the season. But I mean, definitely if you could come out and set the tone from halftime, that's definitely a huge move, a huge advantage for the Wolves.
For sure. And that's something that we have with this unique lineup is the coaches can go in there and they can look at, well, how are they defending the fact that we have this awkward lineup? Or how can we attack them with this, giant lineup we have? So it's fun to see what they draw up, and I'm glad that everyone's buying into the game right now.
So let's look forward. Let's talk about the Miami Heat game, which we have tomorrow. Of course, Jimmy Butler not on the injury report. He has dodged the first of the last of 4 games. Hasn't played the Wolves since 2021. So what are assuming that an Ant is on the injury report as well, but assuming that him and Jaden plays, what are going to be the keys to shutting down Jimmy Butler and the Heat, who had a game winner yesterday as well?
I'm not too worried about shutting them down. I'm just worried about us getting our offense efficiently. I'm worried about Karl Anthony Towns not getting too excited going up against a Kentucky guy and getting early fouls.
Hmm.
I'm worried about Anthony Edwards not trying to, show that he's the alpha and try to make a statement versus Jimmy Butler. I just want us to play our game, play the game plan, move the ball, pick and roll with Rudy, like keep it simple. And I don't think we should have a problem. One thing we do have to look out for, though, is, Duncan Robinson. He's been playing great this year, and he adds another little, little wrinkle. And sometimes those players that you don't expect is who you got to look out for.
Yeah, like you were mentioning, Duncan Robinson playing like a couple years ago. Duncan Robinson, he was really out of the lineup in the largely in the Heat's NBA Finals run, but he appears to be back. 14.7 points per game this season.
Is
Good for third on the team. Go ahead.
is Hero back healthy yet?
Yes, I do believe Hero has been playing. He is not on the injury report. The only guy on the injury report with is Kyle Lowry, who if they both play, will that be could that be an NBA record for oldest point guard or matchup
I
in
think
NBA
so.
history with Mike Conley and Kyle Lowry? Because Kyle Lowry, he's 30, he's got to be 37, right? Or something like
Yeah, they're
that.
not too far off. They're cut from the same cloth. Yeah, that's very possible. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it'll be old. I'm not sure how many I'm not sure how many fast cuts to the basket either of them will do, but that'll be an interesting matchup. I'm sure that Conley and Lowry, they know each other pretty well because I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
they've clashed time and time again. Although Lowry has traditionally been spent a bulk of his career in the Eastern Conference, and of course Mike has been in the West. But I'm sure they know each other just from whether All-Star games. I know Conley only made one, or just matching up with each other. I'm sure there'll be a hug after the game between those two.
Oh yeah.
So moving forward, the Heat tomorrow. Do you think that the squash thing, or do you think that all hostilities? Yeah, here, let me phrase it this way. Do you care about Jimmy Butler anymore? Is it still like, as a Wolves fan? And I know you personally, you kind of checked out during the Tibbs years, but do you have any? I'll say it this way: do you have any animosity to Jimmy Butler anymore, or
No,
is let
not.
bygones be bygones?
Yeah, I don't have any animosity with him as a Timberwolves player. Like I don't love him as a player, just as an NBA player. But no, I don't think he did anything, all that wrong here. Or to be honest, I don't think he did anything all that amazing here either.
Hmm.
Um, year and a half stint. I mean, he barely gets any thought of mine. I just know that he's a solid player, and I want to see how our squad does against a solid team in the East.
Here's the thing: I would have more animosity to him, and let's be honest, the Bulls won that trade. Like, let's be 100% honest. They got the
Yeah.
younger guy, they got the guy who stuck around longer. But what I will say about it is the Bulls didn't do anything spectacular with Levine, and maybe that's probably the fault of the front office, who probably screwed that up royally and are looking to trade him now. But if nothing else, the Bulls got what 5-6 good years out of Levine, so at least
Well,
they got that.
And let's not forget they also got Laurie Marketing in that trade. I mean, if they
That's
wouldn't have
true.
got
Yep.
rid of him, that's two, all stars right now. Laurie Marketing looks like the best player out of all three of them, possibly.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the Bulls kind of fumbled the bag after the fact, but whatever. Tibbs wanted his guy. It is what it is. I'm just glad that that session of our history is over, and the Tim Connolly, Chris Finch session is here because, as they said after the Pacers game, the head coach was just talking about how great the Timberwolves organization is
Hmm.
and how lucky we are to be moving in the direction we are. And I think
Hmm.
it's something the fans need to really listen to and be proud of what we have going here.
I agree, and of course, you're talking about Rick Carlisle, aka Jim
That's right.
Carrey,
Yeah.
who
Yes.
said those comments. Uh, but we have the Miami Heat tomorrow. I have been looking at the schedule a little bit. Other than the Laker game, until and after Christmas, we're not going to have our usual 7 o'clock start time because tomorrow the game is at 6:30. Then the
Hmm.
76ers game, I believe, is at 6 locally. And then the Lakers, usually at normal at 7. And then I think we go on the road to the Kings, who are obviously in a different time zone. So those are later games. So anyway, don't forget to double check your local listings if you're going to
For
watch the
sure.
Wolves game, or you might be a little surprised. And one more question before we end up this podcast that I want to ask you. And I was thinking about this. Is this the most exciting time ever to be a Wolves fan? I mean, obviously the rebuttal is the year they went to the Western Conference Finals, and we'll have to see where this team goes, obviously. But other than maybe this and the founding of an organization, this has got to be the tops, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I feel like the KG Western Conference Finals year might have been more fun, but I'm also remembering like the end of that run when it was exciting, when it was playoff time. I don't remember it early season time, so this might be it. And to like I've been saying for 2 years, this is by far our most talented team. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm so
Mm,
excited. I think it's important for Timberwolves fans to understand that we're not going to go undefeated. Anthony Edwards is not the MVP this year. It's okay. Both of those things are okay. We're going to get some losses, and sometimes we're not going to look amazing. But
hmm.
remember where we were just a couple years ago, and I mean we're going in an amazing direction. And
Yep.
let's just celebrate what we have right now.
I agree. And so let's put a pin in it right there. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man. Any day.
And this is the Running with the Wolves podcast. Like I mentioned at the beginning, give us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you're watching later on YouTube, same thing, like, share, and subscribe. And really, word of mouth marketing. Tell your friends about this podcast if you like what we have to say. This is the Running with the Wolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. And as always, go Wolves.